Hey, everybody, welcome to today's episode of the Opportunity Podcast. Today, we are going back to the pitch. We've had a few defenders, but it is time to score some goals here. So, we have not just like a good player, we have like a top 50 currently ranked player out of University of Missouri. Kylee Simmons is with us. And I took my notes here that, as a sophomore, leading the SEC in points and goals, and obviously a great individual ranking. But we're really excited to spotlight you and hear your story. So, Kylee, thanks so much for taking a little bit of time to join us. But why don't you give us a little bit of your background, like where are you from and how we kind of got to Missouri soccer?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Jason, for having me here. I'm super excited to just talk a little bit about my story. I am originally from Cincinnati, Ohio. I grew up playing all different kinds of sports: soccer, basketball, volleyball, softball, and I grew up swimming because my mom was a swimmer at Ohio State University. So I kind of grew up with that collegiate level athletics always in mind. And I just kind of found my own path and I ended up choosing soccer, and that's kind of how I ended up going this route instead of following my mom in swimming. I just love the game of soccer more than anything.
So how did you balance, I know especially now, like the game is getting younger and younger and so specialized, but you're like, hey, I played basketball, I swam, I loved soccer. So obviously I was involved in soccer. At what point did you become like soccer only?
Soccer only was a, my sophomore year of high school. I played basketball for my high school, and I was also playing club basketball. It's called AAU. And I was playing that along with club soccer up until my sophomore year of high school. And then that was kind of around the time where recruiting started for soccer, and it was like I needed to choose. And it came down to a point of I probably could have either gone basketball or soccer. I had to really pick one or the other. And I chose soccer because at the end of the day, I could not see myself living without that game. And as much as I love basketball, it's just soccer was the next level for me.
Yeah, nice. Well, you kind of had this background. Your mom was a, college swimmer at a big time university. When was that always part of the plan? Like, hey, I'm doing these sports and whatever I pick, it's gonna be college for me to continue my playing, or like when did you really kick it into gear knowing like this is the goal?
Yeah, I for as long as I can remember, I think the D1 athletics was definitely the goal. I don't remember ever not wanting to continue playing my sport. It just became what sport that was going to be as I was growing up. And so then once it became soccer and I was kind of like all into that, it was never really an option for me, I guess. And that was totally personal in my like I chose that for myself. It was never an expectation that my parents had set on me. It was always something that I wanted to do for me. And even with COVID, which interrupted my recruiting process a ton, playing at the next level was never and not an option for me.
So you talked about playing AAU basketball. What was kind of like your club soccer all about, and maybe touch a little bit on the difficulties of recruiting during COVID and what that looked like to get you to Missouri.
Yeah, so my club soccer experience was slightly, I would say, unorthodox in some ways just with COVID. And I had torn my ACL going into my 8th grade year, which was around the time when everyone started sending emails to colleges. And I had to sit down with my coach and be like, well, I can't send emails until I'm back at my best because I don't want coaches to come look at me when I'm 4 months playing again after being out for 8 months. I didn't want to do that. So I started sending emails and trying to get on coaches' radars probably around middle of my freshman year, closer to the beginning of my sophomore year. And unfortunately, that was 2020. And so then spring of my sophomore year, everything shut down. and that really interrupted my recruiting process pretty heavily. And at that point, I did feel a lot of uncertainty and uneasiness with that whole process because I never got any official visits. We weren't allowed to do that. Coaches weren't allowed to come to games. We had a big dead period where we couldn't even talk to them, couldn't do anything, couldn't interact with the players. Like, there was really no option for me other than basically deciding what school I wanted to go to off of a couple phone calls and some pictures of the university. I had FaceTimes to show the stadium and to show the University of Missouri from the coaches, and that's kind of all I got. And so I really had to dig deep and follow my gut and just trust in myself and my abilities, and just really had to rely on myself and myself only to kind of get me through that and to figure out that everything will end up working out the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when you talk to college athletes, like during that recruiting and commitment process, a big part of it is getting on campus and like the feeling you get from like being around the other players and the staff and the campus. So how is it going at Missouri, and like what about those, FaceTime calls and phone conversations kind of won you over to be at Missouri? And what is it like, being a couple years removed from that now, fitting in and actually living it?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that really set Missouri apart from all the other schools that I had been looking at was my mom had said something to me that resonated with me, and she said, pick a school where you would feel just as happy if you didn't play soccer. And that is kind of what I use to kind of base my feelings off of everything. And so then my parents and I drove to Missouri to do a little tour completely on our own, just because I needed to get some sort of feel for the campus before I were to commit to that program when there were so many other programs that I could have done. And as soon as I stepped on campus, I just felt at home. I felt so safe. I felt like it was natural to be here. And I kind of remember telling my parents, like, this is it. Like, I know I'm going to be here. Like, this is what I want. And that was pretty early on in like the decision process. And I kind of knew right away. And then when it comes to the FaceTimes and the phone calls, we had a new coaching staff change in like the middle of my commitment, and I had like a 90-minute conversation with my now head coach, and it was the first time I had ever talked to her over the phone, and I just loved what she was trying to do with our culture. It was everything that I wanted as a soccer player and a person. She prioritized not just the athlete, but the person as well. And that was a big thing for me, especially when it comes to a Power 5 SEC program. A lot of those schools focus on just the soccer, and it's kind of like you're a soccer player and that's all you are to me kind of thing. And I never felt like that with that coach. And after that, I just knew.
Yeah, it's definitely with making a commitment, and you hear a lot of times, somebody has maybe been committed for a year or two, and then it comes time to get close to showing up on campus and there's a coaching change. So was there some doubts in your mind when there was a little bit of a change during your kind of recruiting process that you thought, oh my gosh, like what am I doing? Maybe I should be considering somewhere else more heavily, or something that I already told them no? And and what ultimately, I guess it would be the conversation with your coach of just the culture and what fit you. But was there like an uh-oh moment?
Definitely. I think that it was full of like uh-ohs, uncertainty moments all the way throughout, just because I didn't know if I was making the right decision. I had no idea. And it was just one of those things where I had to completely rely on myself. And when it became with the coaching staff, I did wonder, like, oh, I wonder if this coaching staff is not going to like me because they technically hadn't recruited me from the very beginning. I don't know if they really are going to like me as a player, but at the end of the day, that taught me a lot how to be resilient and be confident in myself no matter who's watching me, and saying, like, it doesn't matter who is on the field watching me, who my coach is, I'm going to show the type of player that I am, and it doesn't really matter, kind of thing. I've always taken pride in my, like, versatility as a player and my coachability, so I never was super worried about not getting along with the new coaching staff. And if anything, the conversation that I had with my head coach was even more of like, okay, I am making the right decision because she has all the values that align with mine as well.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about you and being versatile, on the playing field. Where do you find yourself most comfortable? What side are you on? What does Kylee as a playing style look like?
Yeah, I am most confident in the center of the field. So the center forward, which is also the 9 position. I grew up playing both on the left wing and the right wing, so I do have some outside forward experience as well. I'm very confident in the center of the field because I can go either direction. I don't have a specific dominant or weak foot. I'm confident taking penalty kicks with both of my feet. Like, that's something that I take pride in a lot with my game, so I like being in the center to give me opportunity to kind of go wherever. My playing style is definitely it's definitely a true center forward, like, hold up style playing wise. I hold up the ball, I'm strong, I'm very good in the air, so I can score with my head and both of my feet. And so I think, like, just finding the pockets at the end of the game to find a goal in whatever way I can is probably my playing style. It's very gritty and strong, and it doesn't look always pretty all of the time, but I get the job done.
If it's in the back of the net, nobody really cares about, what it looked like to get there. They only
Right.
remember you running back to midfield after the goal.
Exactly.
That's actually, in terms of playing style in soccer and being a 9, that I think your style has probably the best longevity
Mm-hmm.
of career opportunity. Like, you're not 100% relying on just speed or beating somebody down the side and things that change over time. Like, you're just skillful in and around the box and in the middle of the field. And, if you can be in the air too, like, my gosh, like, that's what else is there?
Yeah.
So what, talk a little bit about kind of your preparation and like getting to Missouri. You're a freshman. You have a little bit of opportunity to play your freshman year. I think your first goal was like against number 1 at the time, like North Carolina. But then
Yes.
you get into your sophomore year and like you're the leading goal scorer. Like, what happened team wise or for you
Yeah.
kind of developmentally?
Yeah. My most pivotal moment was definitely working on my mental side of the game after my freshman season. So my freshman spring, I so like last year at this time, I told myself I was really going to focus on all of the details. It was my first opportunity to experience an off season with that type of program, and I really took advantage of every single opportunity I could have had. I worked with our nutritionist. I focused so hard in the weight room. I was like the first one to get there and the last one off the field, just working on my own. I was in the coach's office doing film outside of practice times and outside of those like requirement hours. And I just did a little bit of that every day. It wasn't like I was spending hours and hours and never had time to myself, but every day I was doing something extra. And that just consistently was built over the months of the spring. And then when my sophomore season hit, I knew I was ready. I was just in a different zone, I guess you could say. I had told my coaches and my parents that my sophomore year I wanted to be the leading goal scorer of my team, was what my goal was and the goal that I had set for myself. And I remember after SEC season had started after non-conference, and it was like, okay, I'm leading the conference. And I was like, okay, like this is cool. It's still early. It's week 2, it's week 3. It's early. I'm not going to get my hopes up. I'm just going to put my head down and keep going and keep doing what I've been doing. And then it's just every week I ended up staying there and building my stats, and I just kind of kept going, and it became one of those things where I never would have expected that to have been the result of all the hard work that I had put in the spring. But it was, and then I was sitting there looking at the fact that I had led the conference in goals overall, and it wasn't just my team. And it even became the fact that I was still leading in goals even after some of the SEC teams were still playing NCAAs. Like, they were still in NCAAs, and I wasn't playing any games anymore, and I still was leading in goals even after the full tournament. And it was one of those things where it just like really showed me and gave me perspective that hard work does pay off if you just keep going.
Yeah. Well, and so fast forward a year from then, like we're in spring again. Like, are we still doing every day? Like, where are you mentally, where you're coming off of obviously an amazing season, exceeding your goals basically, but now we're back to the springtime. What's going on in Kylie's life now?
Yeah, I mean, the work starts over. It never really stops. And so it's one of those things where I would love to my next goal is to be an All-American. With that, I did make first team SEC. I want to get in the top 25 rankings instead of the top 50. Like, I'd like to keep making those strides forward, and it's kind of one of those things where I do sit and I look back and I'm like, yes, I did have a fantastic season, but it also keeps going. I want to use the confidence and the presence that I have on the field now to just continue to grow with my teammates and give some of my teammates opportunity as well to almost have their breakout season, because the more of my teammates who have that as well, the better that we're going to be overall. So that's kind of my next step forward, is just looking at building my leadership and using the presence that I have now to keep my teammates moving forward as well.
Yeah, with the teammates that you had who were with you last spring, who go through the whole season with you, and now we're back to spring again and you're putting in the work. Is anybody joining you in the gym? Like, is leading from the front kind of like pulling others along with you, like, hey, look at what this compounding work does if we keep grinding all spring leading into our season?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely see all of my teammates putting in the work, and then we're in an 8-hour period right now, so we don't really have as much time to train with our team in an organized format. But I've gotten crossing and finishing drills from my coaches, and we have a group of 9 or 10 that stay after weekly and continue to grow and just like push the needle forward, which I'm really looking forward to that translating on the field in the fall, because a lot of people don't have the perspective to see what they're doing now, what it will do. And I kind of have that perspective, which is cool and a little bit different. Is I know it does pay off. It's just the timing. You have to be patient. You just have to keep going, and it will eventually.
Yeah. So, growing up, you played multiple sports. Mom was a killer college athlete. Did you watch anything? Like, do you like watching soccer or basketball, or did anything you watch as a kid or just even getting into now influence how you play or the style that you like to play?
Yeah, I think Abby Wambach was probably my most influential player growing up. I still sometimes think of her as like the forward on the national team now, even though she's been retired for years. When I think of the U.S. national team and watching the World Cup and watching the Olympics, I think of Abby Wambach as that center forward, and I can picture many of her goals in my brain, like as we speak. And so she definitely influenced my playing style, maybe more than what I would have thought when I was younger, just because I just liked watching her because I thought she was a fun player to watch. Um, Alex Morgan as well. I had met her when I was 13 at a soccer camp, and I had won the juggling contest out of like the whole campers. So I got to like have some like one-on-one time with her, and I got an autographed picture of her and a picture with her, and it was kind of, that was a really 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 cool moment too, because I just like remember looking at her and being like, I just want to be her. Like everything about her I wanted to do and I wanted to be. And so like even watching them play together during the World Cups and during the Olympics before Abby retired was just such a pivotal and influential part of my development for sure.
Do you recall how many juggles was the winning number?
I don't remember, because it was however many you can get in 60 seconds. So it was like we had a ton of campers. So it was kind of like how many could you get in that like time period? And I have no idea. I remember doing it for the whole time. Like I didn't drop the ball once, and I tried to keep just the touches as low as I possibly could because I knew what winning that could do. But at the same time, I did know how many campers there were, so I didn't think I was going to be the one that got that too. I was not. I was just trying to do my best and have fun with it.
Yeah. Just kind of reflecting back on what that experience meant to you and what those, interactions with those players were like. Obviously, there's a lot more growth happening in women's soccer right now. More opportunities to be in front of players. There's more leagues popping up. There's a larger schedule. What about that experience for you kind of like lives in your mind of maybe wanting to be that for somebody else someday, that they see you, meet you at a game, anything like that, and just knowing that like just the smallest positive interaction like can really make a big difference for a young
Yeah.
girl?
I think what you said almost perfectly sums up another reason why I was excited to be here today with you and do this, just because sharing your story, especially in women's sports, can be so influential even when you think it's doing nothing. And a good example of that I experienced for the first time just this past fall was when we played Missouri State at a neutral site in St. Louis. We did it was called like Zoo to the Lou. It was like an event that they did. And so it was a lot of the St. Louis like girls soccer clubs like went to that game specifically. And we won that game, and I had scored that game. And after the game I was talking with my parents because we're given some family time after, and I had like two young girls, probably 10 or 11 years old, kind of reluctantly come up to me, like super nervous, so cute, which is so funny to me because when I think of them being nervous, I just am like, I'm nothing, like not in that like sense, but just like I couldn't imagine someone being nervous to like come up to me. But they had come up to me with their dad, and he was like, they really want a picture with you. Can they please have a picture with you? And I was like, I mean, why? But yeah, like I was like, sure, of course, like I'm not gonna say no, but why? Like it was kind of like an eye-opening experience with that, because I'm just playing the game I love, and 75% of the time I still feel like I'm 11 years old, exactly where they are right now, like still growing up with the game. And to see that like was so cool to me. It like gives me chills thinking about that. So I just want to continue making a positive impact within the community in any way that I can.
Yeah, I think there's such an opportunity where, you know, even less like when you were that age, because you're not actually 10 or 11 anymore, So like when you were that age of just like opportunities to see girls and like be in that environment without winning some miracle juggling contest and, getting to Alex Morgan. But I just like really believe in like the if you see it, you can be it kind of thing. And I think that's like such a growing thought within the women's game. Like I bring my daughter Ronnie to just about like every women's sport, and like we just kind of had nothing to do one day, and like we had the like a college bowl game that was in San Diego. I was like, "Do you want to go to the football game?" And she's like, "Is that boys?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "No." I'm like, so she just like doesn't even like the first time she saw men's basketball, she's like, oh, boys play basketball too. I'm like, oh, like
I love
that's what
that.
we're trying to shape,
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And just from like what her experience is and seeing how excited she is, like before and after games for those interactions, is really cool that at a young age in your playing career, kind of like bought into, that mentality. And, I'd hate to say it's a responsibility, but like you're her, to those girls. So with kind of some of that involvement and like what you guys are, spring season, either just starting or like you guys are getting into that, what's your outlook for, you personally this season, and what your team is looking forward to, just starting the season and in SEC play?
Yeah, I think one big thing that is really important for myself personally is setting hardcore expectations for myself. I think can be more damaging than helpful at times, because I'll get in a mindset where I feel so much pressure or I have to perform perfectly all the time. And so I think my goal is just to get better every day, and I'm just going to start with that, because that's what my mentality was last year, and it did wonders for me. And so if it works, it works. I'm going to continue doing that, and my main focus is just going to be on building my team, because we have some pretty big goals in mind coming to next season, and we're changing a lot of what our team is and what it means and our identity, and we're exploring different playing styles and just what it means for all of us to be a Mizzou soccer player. And we obviously want to be a part of something bigger and do something that the program has never seen before. So I'm using that to just build up my teammates and continue and just keep making sure everyone is doing extra and doing the work that needs to be done to get where we say we want to go.
So obviously you have the super strong mindset, like you're clearly driven to accomplish great things within the realm of, not burning yourself out. Who is Kylee outside of, you know, you as a soccer player? Like what are you interested in? Is it still, are you still extremely driven in just about everything you do? What are you kind of Who are you outside of Kylee the player?
Yeah, definitely I would say I'm driven in everything. In school, I'm studying pre med as of right now, so I'm on either a pre med or a pre PA track. I do want to explore any opportunity I can to play professionally after college, so if that means I would take a PA route since it's shorter instead of a med school route, then that's where I would go. So it kind of depends on that. Um, I am an animal lover. Family is really important to me. Spirituality is extremely important to me. Um, I love hot yoga. That's like my biggest hobby right now. I think it's so good for my mind and my body, and gives me something different other than just like training soccer wise or running or lifting. It gets kind of outside of the box when it comes to different ways to cross train and stuff. Um, and then, I mean, other than that, I would just say I'm kind of a normal 20-year-old girl. I love my friends. I love the normal shopping and getting my makeup done and getting my nails done and all of that fun stuff. So I would say I'm pretty normal in those aspects.
Nice. Well, clearly come from a family that shares the same mindset without even pushing you into it. I think it's just part of you, which is really awesome to hear. And I've enjoyed talking with you and just kind of getting to know the process and where you've been a little bit better. Before we wrap up, you have hopeful aspirations of continuing to play after college. Do you have like, Morgan's still playing, so we're blessed. We got her in San Diego. Do you have teams or games that you focus on and watch, or if downtime even exists for you? Like what what does that look like as you envision yourself kind of playing at that next level?
Yeah, I don't have a specific team necessarily. I don't want to like close any doors or get my hopes set on a specific team. I was in San Diego over in January, and I was really hoping I would run into Alex Morgan randomly in the streets. I unfortunately did not have that opportunity, but I was really hoping. I think when it comes to watching and like looking at that next level, I really focus on specific players, and I also focus on even players in the collegiate level that I look up to and that are graduating or seniors or fifth years, to just even look at what they're doing and how they're moving their game. I like to focus on watching other players that play similarly to me to help kind of see what that looks like at the next level.
Yeah. And I think that in a lot of cases, as you move levels and from, club in high school to into the college, and I think one of the biggest things you hear is that the pace of play is it's just a faster game every time you kind of make a change and take a step up. But it seems like you have adjusted amazingly to the college scene. And I know that with what you're doing and kind of the work and the mindset of pushing forward and achieving things and focusing on your teammates is going to get you pretty far. So we're really excited. I can't wait to, the great thing about now is from San Diego, we can do some streaming apps and catch some SEC games this year, and we'll for sure be rooting for you. But I really, really appreciate your time. It means a lot just hearing from me, for me to hear like your story and what, giving support to a younger generation has meant to you based on kind of the experiences of you that you've had. So best of luck being just like a doctor someday too. Just like you're on the side thing as being, pre-med like crazy. So we appreciate your time. If there's anything we can ever do, feel free to reach out anytime, but definitely appreciate taking the time with us.
Yes, thank you so much. I have truly enjoyed this. I really appreciate the opportunity.